Alright, good afternoon, gentlemen. I hope everyone's having a fantastic day. It's episode number 32 of the Minecraft Survival Let's Play. In the previous episode, we worked on a bunch of things. We worked on the cabin in the woods, Asgard, and we kind of got started with this entire kind of Tuscan-inspired village, which we'll be continuing in today's episode. We're probably going to be focusing on that. In the previous episode, I mentioned that I eventually want to build up some kind of a coliseum, and that's kind of sparked a bunch of inspiration in my mind. I really want to fast track or speed towards that end goal. I want to have a huge coliseum, so we're going to have to kind of mark that or plot that down. Where are we going to be building that? And I want a huge city kind of surrounding that coliseum. I think that'll be pretty atmospheric and engrossing, kind of taking inspiration from the movie Gladiator. That's what I have in my mind. So eventually I want to get to that, and that's why in today's episode we're going to build towards that. Alright, but that's just a little summary of what we've done, what we're planning on doing, giving you a bit of a roadmap. Other than that, there's one last thing I want to mention. In the previous episode I talked about how I was going to see the Uncharted movie. For those of you who care, I'm going to do a little bit of a small review in today's episode. If you don't care about that, just skip over it, but I wasn't really a fan of the movie, so we'll talk about that a little bit later in the episode. No spoilers or anything like that, just my basic general thoughts. Anyways, getting on into the episode itself. Alright, so back over here at the Tuscan area, which we'll try to complete in today's episode. Off camera, I went ahead and started to build up all of the pathways. I basically finished that, just connected them to all of the houses using a combination of different stone blocks. We're also going to be filling out this river right here, adding some water to it, building some bridges, and we're going to be detailing the houses. We'll be trying to finish all of the grapevines. I don't know if we'll completely finish this entire area, but I'm going to go ahead and try my best to add some doors, add some details to all of the houses. The pathway itself is a little bit different to the standard variation of blocks that I use. It's mostly made out of cobblestone and mossy cobblestone, but I snuck in some andesite and a little bit of gravel here and there. And we'll do a bunch of terraforming in this episode. We'll get all of this fixed up, bone meal everything, detail all of the houses, and just see how much work we can do. I'm going to do as much as I possibly can without getting sick of this area, but I don't think that I'll get sick of it because I'm really enjoying this area so far. So yeah, I have some work to do. I'm going to go ahead and get that done, and then I'll be back with you all with a progress update. Alright, so here we are. The river has been filled in. I built up a bridge over here, 2 bridges actually, but we'll get to that. And then I built up 2 kind of dams to stop the water because we're not exactly ready to fill in the entire river. We still have some terraforming to do on this side over here, so we'll get to that. But for now, I think it definitely looks pretty good. We're going to go ahead and add some vegetation to it later at some point. Maybe some, what are those things called? It starts with a P. I'm blanking on the name of it. The lily pads, right? Yeah, we'll get to that. But now the next thing that I want to do is kind of get to decorating all the houses. Also, these are the bridges I was talking about. One's diagonal, one's straight, using very simple blocks, but I think they look decent. They get the job done. They're kind of more like poor bridges, but yeah, I think they definitely get the job done. Other than that, though, it's time to detail up all of the houses. I'm using scaffolding, which I really never use, but I'm like, wow, this is the perfect application to be using them. We can wrap around all the way over the houses, and then we can kind of just detail the houses as we go. So we'll be detailing them with windows. We'll have a bunch of different spruce fixtures, and then we'll add some vines and leaves and stuff like that to kind of emulate vines growing on walls, but they're a little bit more detailed than just having regular vines. So I'm going to get to that. I'm going to go ahead, detail all of these houses, and then we'll be back with another progress update. So a good amount has changed since the last progress update. You can see that I've went ahead and over detailed all of the houses. I think that they look pretty good, but just talking about the coarse dirt for a second, I went ahead and outlined all of the areas that we're going to be transforming into coarse dirt areas where we're going to eventually put the grapevines. I'm going to leave some of the grass in there just to make it look a little bit varied and kind of overgrown, but we're going to be getting rid of most of the grass. Anyways, that's going to be a pretty tedious project. The houses themselves, like I was saying, maybe they're a little too overgrown. We're probably going to have to run through them with some string and just stop the vines from getting absolutely everywhere. But I think as a whole, they look really good. They look exactly like how I envisioned them in my head, with the vines on the wall, with the overgrown greenery all over them. I'm just realizing now that I didn't get rid of the scaffolding, which I'll have to go ahead and do quickly. But overall, all of the houses are completely detailed. They're finished. Obviously, the interiors are not complete. They'll probably never be completed, but I think they look good. I'm happy with them. The only thing that's kind of weird is the glass. I'm using that kind of pattern where you use 2 different shades of glass, and it looks fine. I think it does look good overall, but it's just a little bit weird sometimes when you look at it, so that's okay. I also went ahead and lit up the area. All of the paths are lit up. We're going to have to light up the entire place where all of the grapevines are, so we'll use like the moss carpets or maybe brown carpet where the coarse dirt goes, and I'm gonna have to bone meal the entire area. There's still some things that I want to do, but overall you're seeing the area come together, and now all I have to do is, I guess, detail the area and add all of the grapevines, and this entire island should be completed. Alright, so some progress has been made. This is what the area is looking like now. There's a bunch of different rows here of the grapevines, and I didn't want to do the entire area in this up and down fashion, so these are going from left and right just to make it look a little bit different, add a different kind of design to the overall area, different pattern. In between all of the bushes, we have the same thing going on as we did with the previous grapevine. There's some grass giving it that overgrown look. Kind of combine those two sentences together, but we're also going to be bone mealing it. We're going to be adding some smaller details. I want to go ahead and maybe add a few of those, what are they called? The new leaves that have those like pink berries in them, just to give the look of, I guess, that there's some kind of grapes growing in these spruce leaves, because right now you get what I'm going for, but it doesn't exactly 100% achieve the look of a grapevine, so maybe we'll mix some of those in there. But there's still a ton of work to do. I have to transform all of this into coarse dirt and then grapevine, so I'm going to continue to chip away at this area, and we'll be back when it's finished. Alright, so I've been placing a lot of coarse dirt and I'm kind of bored of it, so I just wanted to mix things up a little bit, step out of the Tuscan village. We'll get back to it, but for now I want to focus on this village right here. We built this in kind of like the early days of the Minecraft survival world. I don't know if we've built much of it. Most of this side was just in the world tour, but I built this up and I'm pretty happy with how it looks. Like, most of the houses are decently well designed. A lot of them I copied from other YouTubers and got inspiration from other builds, but for the most part the city is pretty good. And bar some texture pack issues, like right here, the version of diorite that I had when I built this house was completely different, so the house now needs to be replaced, or the diorite needs to be replaced. But I was walking around this village and it's good, like, it's decent. There are some unfinished parts of it, which we'll get back to, but the main gripe I have with this entire area is it doesn't really feel alive. It doesn't feel messy enough. There are a bunch of shrubbery and vines and leaves that are overgrown, but there's not exactly, like, I can't see people living here. Like, there needs to be some fire pits, some lanterns, some crates, small details like that, piles of wood, just small human details, and that's what this village is really lacking. So I want to go ahead, add some tables and chairs and all of those details, and see if we could make this entire village a little bit more lively or lifelike. Okay, so quickly I want to do a before and after. This is what the village is looking like before, and this is what it's looking like after. You can see there's a variety of different details all over the place. Fire pits, crates, chests, random hay bales. We got flower pots, lanterns all over the place, tables, chairs, a bunch of different small details just adding to the kind of atmosphere here. This is some kind of like a furniture display thing for, I guess, some furniture shop. They're trying to market their place. We got anvils, different tools, a bunch of wood right here, using all of those like campfire or extinguished campfire blocks. That's a cool detail that I saw on Pinterest. But just adding life, we went ahead and replaced the diorite here, and you can't really lie, this looks so much better. Like, there's just so much more atmosphere, there's so many more details, it feels so much more lived in, and it's not perfect. I used a lot of repetition. There's a lot of the same thing going on, a lot of the same crates with fire in them. Maybe this needs to be adjusted, but it just adds so much to the village, and I'm just so much more a fan of how this is looking right now. It just feels like humans actually live here. They leave all of their junk all over the place, and so I'm way more happy with how this village is looking like now. We did this side. I still have some things to do over on this side, so I'm going to go ahead and continue on, place a few more anvils and tables and chairs, and see what the completed village looks like. Alright, so more of the same here, just continuing to detail out the rest of the city, adding small details here and there. I'm going to have to go ahead and scroll through Pinterest and find some new things to add, maybe a wheelbarrow here and there, or some kind of a trolley cart. The people on Pinterest are incredibly talented. People can think up the smallest, most minute details in Minecraft that just make so much sense, but until you see them, you would never really think to put them there. So thank God for Pinterest and Google and all those resources. They really help and make my life a lot easier, because they just make everything look better. So I'm going to continue to research some small details, but I think for now we're going to leave the village looking like this. It's a huge improvement in my opinion. So yeah, very happy with it. Let's move on to something else. Alright, so we're taking a bit of a detour in the end. I had a few ideas for one of the buildings, and I wanted to just go ahead and build it right away before those ideas kind of disappeared in my mind. So I built up one of the first houses. In the previous episode, we built this gate right here. I'm not a fan of it. We talked about that in the previous episode, so no need to continue on with that. We're probably going to remodel it or tear it down. But the first house I built, I'm not happy with it because it just doesn't fit this tone. Like, I'll show you in a second, but I don't know. Let's move back over here so you can get a bit of a better view. There's a lot of yellow going on. There's a lot of glass, but this is what the house looks like. It's supposed to be just like a citizen's house. It looks cool and interesting, and I like the build itself. Maybe it's a little bit too much yellow. We're probably going to have to switch out that glass, but it just doesn't fit this area, or I don't think it fits this area. This entire kind of Asgard build is based off of Norse mythology, right? And this is kind of taking that primitive Viking era stuff and making it scientific and kind of futuristic, but this build itself just looks a little too modern, a little too kind of earthly or human. This just looks like something you can see in Los Angeles or something like that. It's just like a modern house with a very weird block palette. So it doesn't exactly achieve the look that I was going for, but I am happy with the scale, and I'm happy that I just kind of went ahead and built a structure up, because this is kind of motivating me to continue on with this city. It's giving me kind of like a look at what I don't want, but also what I do want. It's just helping me figure out what I want to kind of add to this build, or what style I'm going for here. So while this is decent and we're going to leave it up for a bit, it's not perfect, and there are some adjustments that I want to make to maybe shape it a little bit more like something that was kind of Norse inspired. All right, here we are back at the vineyard. You can see I'm starting to get everything completed over here. We have this section done. We have these sections which we're working on right now. You can see all the exposed sea lanterns for the lighting. You can see all the fences in there. I got all the grass and the coarse dirt. So I'm just going to add a bunch of the spruce leaves, and then we're going to bone meal up the place. And honestly, that's basically going to be it. I believe once we finish this, we should be completed or finished with this entire section of the kind of Tuscan village area. So that's pretty exciting. Let's get that done, and then I'll be back with you guys. All right, and here we are. I'm going to turn around, and there you have it. It's basically done. I mean, like I say with all of my builds, nothing's ever 100% complete. When I finish something, there's always details that we can add, but you can see all the different rows jagging in all the different ways, horizontally, vertically, sideways, whatever other direction you want to call it. But yeah, I think this looks really good. It looks a little bit different to this area over here. I think we use a little bit more coarse dirt, and in this area that we just worked on, we use a little bit more grass. So there's a little bit of kind of a different look going on there. Maybe we'll go update the previously built vineyard. But right now, I'm just incredibly happy with how this all turned out. I really like this area. It's very atmospheric. It looks kind of realistic almost to me. I mean, this is exactly how I envisioned it to be. So we achieved that. I'm really happy with it. It's kind of an irrelevant part of the world. There's no like farms or anything, but that's like most of my worlds. It's just another pretty area that you can walk through, and you know, all these different sections are just adding up. The world tour video, when we eventually post that at like episode 50, is going to be insane. There's going to be so much to tour around, but again, I'm really happy with this area, and let's move on to, I guess, the next project, which will also be in this kind of in the vein of like a Tuscan Italian inspired village, just expanding this concept. I'd also like to mention that I've been doing a little bit of terraforming when it comes to the riverbed. I raised up the rest of the water, kind of continuing this trend, or I guess the same water level down all the way, and this is going to surround the entirety of this new island that we're going to be working on. So it looks a little bit goofy right now, but all of the water will be raised to the exact same level. Maybe we'll have a few dips and dives just to give it kind of like a waterfall-esque vibe, but this right now isn't looking great, so I just wanted to let you know that we're going to fix all of that and get to all of that in the future. Okay, but here we are. This is where the Tuscan village is going to be expanding to. There's going to be a river that wraps around this entire kind of island peninsula in front of me. We have a ton of terraforming to do, so I wanted to quickly go ahead and show you a before shot. Okay, so here's that after shot. You could see it looks pretty different. I mean, I'll put the clips up side to side just so you can quickly see the differences, but it's still not perfect. It's still not completed. This area is looking very cookie cutter. I'm going for a natural look, and I haven't exactly achieved that yet in some areas. Some look better than others. There's a nice little bridge there I'll get to. There's still some pockets of stone and some uncompleted areas. We'll get to, incompleted areas. We'll get to all of that. We have to kind of edit the river around here, fill it up, bring up the water levels, make it all look a little bit more in line with how it's supposed to. But I think this is a great improvement. It definitely looks much better. It gives me a base for kind of just building. I can edit small areas later on, but if everything looks a little bit more naturalistic and it's all like well blended, then I find it's a little bit easier to build on, and it's better to get the terraforming out first and then to do all the building than the other way around, because it can get a little bit weird that way. But I'm very happy with this. I have a bunch of shovels to repair. I have some areas to edit and complete. I have some dirt to collect because I've basically run out of dirt completely and grass, so I have to do a bunch of those things, and when I'm done and when I've kind of edited the area a little bit more, I'll get back to you and we could see the progress I've made. I also quickly just wanted to showcase this bridge that we have over here. It's not exactly a bridge. You saw the bridge in previous clips, even a previous episode, but what I built here is kind of like a section of mountain that I've knocked out, and then it kind of guides you right through it. It's just an opening, and I wanted to build up some kind of a retaining wall on both sides just so the walls, or I guess the dirt, doesn't really cave in. It's a very simple design. It's just some fences, some logs, and I guess the only unique thing about it is the shape, how it kind of curves, and I think that's pretty interesting detail. It's not the best build ever. It's not the worst build ever. It doesn't really need to be the best thing ever, but I think it looks pretty decent and it definitely fits the area, so I'm pretty happy with that. Just a small detail that I want to show off. Okay, but getting a different look at this plateau or landmass, you can see I've done a little bit of work on this back wall, kind of completed the rest of the landmass. There's a few things that I want to edit now. There's some stone that we have to get rid of, which I'll do very soon. That's been bothering me, but I want to focus on this landmass right here in particular. It looks very man-made. There's a lot of the same repeating lines, and it just doesn't look that good, so I want to break that up a little bit. Same thing going on over here. It just looks man-made and unnatural. I've discussed that previously. I want to see if I can mix things up just a little bit, see if I can make them look a little bit more natural. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll be back with you and we could see if I've achieved that. And here we are. You can see I've changed some things up. It's looking a lot more natural, I would say. There's a lot less of those jagged lines, or I guess repeating lines. Some things or some levels branch out to different depths and widths, and it just looks more like I envisioned it. There's still some plateaus here that I want to work on. That's looking a little bit flat. This area has probably received the most attention or the biggest change. I think this looks so much better than it used to look. It just looks, again, I'm going to say this for the 40th time, more natural. So I feel like I'm pretty comfortable with this entire area now. It looks much better than it did before, and I'm finally ready to start building on it. There's still some things I want to do over here with the river. We have to kind of raise this wall up a little bit so that we can get the water up, so I'll get to that in a future episode or future clip. I'm not exactly sure. I'm kind of done with terraforming for right now, but yeah, I think we're gonna leave this area off. I think I'm happy with it. Alright, gentlemen, but unfortunately that's going to be all for today's episode. I know it's much shorter than usual, but you can probably tell that my voice sounds very different. I'm pretty sick right now, so I'm not able to complete the rest of this video. There was about 1/3 left that I wasn't able to show off, and that's kind of all the interesting stuff, so that's pretty unfortunate. But what I've decided to do is go ahead and take all of these clips that we didn't get to today, and I'm going to put them at the beginning of next week's episode, and I am going to be uploading weekly from now on. Instead of doing 30+ minute bi-weekly episodes, I'm going to be doing 15-minute weekly episodes, so I guess you get more content, or really the same amount of content, but it's just a little bit more frequent. I think that's a better way of doing things. Anyways, though, I'm basically done talking for now, so I hope you guys enjoyed this short episode. I hope to see you in next week's episode. Have a great day, guys. See ya.